Faruk Orman was jailed in 2002 over his involvement in the murder of underworld figure Victor Pearce. This morning he walked free, having served 12 years of his 20-year sentence. His conviction has been quashed. The Court of Appeal ruled there had been a substantial miscarriage of justice. Because Mr Orman's original lawyer was Nicola Gobbo, also known as Lawyer X or Informant 3838. Manny Conditsis is a lawyer and a criminal law specialist and joins us now. Manny, thanks for your time.
Good evening, Patricia. Pleased to be with you.
This is the first conviction to be quashed in the wake of this Lawyer X scandal. How significant is this?
It's very significant in the sense that there has been a lot of speculation over a long time now as to what would happen in relation to convictions that relied in some way, shape or form on material put forward or evidence offered or information given by Ms Gobbo. So in that sense, it's very important. It brings to life some of the speculation and brings to reality some of the speculation to the effect that there has been a lot of consideration about what would happen as these appeals begin to roll. So we've now got a real-life example of what could certainly happen as we proceed forward.
So who is Faruk Orman? He's long maintained his innocence. On what basis was his conviction overturned?
That's a very good question. And in terms of how subsequent appeals proceed, it is very important to understand the precise facts in relation to this appeal. There were three very important facts that the Crown conceded in relation to the appeal. It needs to be understood that the lawyers for Mr Orman put forward a number of allegations, a number of scenarios. Many of them were not conceded by the Crown and would have been a live issue for determination by the Court of Appeal. But three very important facts were agreed, were conceded. Number one, that as at October 2002, a person identified as witness Q, on whose evidence Mr Orman was substantially convicted, from that period of time Ms Gobbo represented him. Firstly. Secondly, that on 11 October 2006, Ms Gobbo was engaged by Mr Orman to represent him in relation to a number of charges that he was facing in Queensland. Thirdly, that in November 2007, at a time when she was engaged to act on behalf of Mr Orman, Ms Gobbo improperly took active steps to ensure that the person known as witness Q gave evidence against Mr Orman in the murder trial. They are the facts that were agreed, and the court did not have to, there was no issue about them.
Okay.
So they are the facts upon which the court made the ultimately its decision. But there's two important areas of law that were also conceded by the Crown. Number one, that there was in fact a substantial miscarriage of justice by the conduct of Ms Gobbo. Now, pausing there, once there's a concession by the Crown in an appeal that there is miscarriage of justice, there are two options. And assuming, of course, that the Court of Appeal would accept that submission, that there was a miscarriage of justice. It would be very unusual if it didn't. So once there's a miscarriage of justice, what happens then? Well, what happens is that the Court of Appeal can order a retrial, or it can enter an acquittal, quash the conviction and enter an acquittal. So when we get to that point in this exercise on the appeal, the Crown also conceded that the appropriate course was for there to be a quashing of the conviction on the basis that Mr Orman had already served a significant portion of his non-parole period, and indeed, if there was going to be a retrial, by the time a retrial would come on for hearing, that subject to any grant of bail, there's a real possibility he would have served more than the non-parole period that was originally handed out to him.
Okay, so do you expect more verdicts will be overturned, or was this a specific case?
Look, it's difficult to say, but my experience suggests that I do expect more verdicts to be overturned. notwithstanding that in relation to the Orman matter, the Crown has agreed to certain facts and certain matters of law, which has essentially laid the foundation for the Court of Appeal making the decision that it did. Notwithstanding that, there, and we'll have to wait to see what comes out of the Royal Commission, more evidence, obviously this is a substantial amount of evidence needs to be heard. But the short answer to your question is yes, I do expect more convictions to be overturned, because a lot of the areas complained about in relation to Mr Orman, as I understand it, will be repeated in the other appeals.
A Royal Commission is underway currently to examine this case. Given that's happening at the same time, how do they kind of work concurrently together? All of these appeals, or potential appeals, and then, of course, this Royal Commission concurrently?
Well, they are of a different nature. They are different beasts. So on the one hand, we've got a Royal Commission which is carrying out an investigation. There's the terms of reference in relation to Ms Gobbo as a lawyer doing what she did, and also the police involvement. And there is evidence that is given to the Commission in relation to that particular inquiry. On the other hand, we have appeals that are which are determined judicially and according to law. They are a different beast, and for example, something that is said in the Commission, there may be evidence in the Commission by a particular witness. If that evidence doesn't find its way before the Court of Appeal or any other competent court in relation to any appeal, then it's just simply not taken into account. Judges of the Court of Appeal or any other court can't take into account something said in a Royal Commission unless it's admitted in evidence before it.
Manny, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleased to be with you.
Manny Conditsis there joining us to talk about that quite a alarming story. He's a lawyer and a criminal law specialist today, Faruk Orman, who was jailed in 2002 over his involvement in the murder of an underworld figure. Essentially, his conviction has been quashed by the Court of Appeal, ruled there had been a substantial miscarriage of justice and there could be implications for others over this Lawyer X case. This is RN Drive.